Hello, welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I'm pretty sure I'm awake.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Awake, which came out in 2007, written and directed by Joby Harold. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Hayden Christensen's character, Clay Beresford, who is the heir to a massive fortune in New York City. He has to undergo a heart transplant, and while on the table, experiences an out-of-body experience where he realizes a conspiracy against him.
You ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Wait,
Be all yours.
am I supposed to be asleep right now?
This is the only film this director has ever directed.
Nice.
He's usually just a writer, producer, and some of his films are actually fantastic. Well, they've, obviously made by other directors, but
Yeah.
the script writing is sometimes hit and miss. And this film in particular wasn't given, the critics were not given advanced screenings of this film, which is an immediate alarm bell for anybody interested in this film, that the studio did not have faith that the critics would give it a positive review. So they weren't allowed to, and so they just kind of put the film out into cinemas, and then it disappeared for, well, I don't know, does anybody remember this film?
No, I mean, 2007, I forgot to look this up. Like, where were we in the Star Wars trilogy at this point? I mean, had we already
It was done.
It was already done, so
Yeah.
the damage had already been done by Hayden Christensen's character, and I, for one, have to admit, I avoided his performances. I apologize. I'm a Star Wars fan, and so when the next 3 films came out, I followed the series, and then 2 and 3, I'm not going to go on about it now, but 2 and 3 came out, and the backlash of some of his acting or the storytelling or whatever, or the script or anything, everything, whatever, it damaged. I was partly responsible for damaging him, and so if I saw a film with him in, I just went, no,
Avoid.
thank you.
The same could also be said for Jessica Alba.
Yeah, oh,
because
yes, I was
no
gonna-
one has ever really given Jessica Alba favourable critical reviews.
Ah,
They kind of praise how gorgeous she is.
Yeah.
And, I was a big fan of her from Dark Angel, the
Ooh,
James
yes.
Cameron TV
Yeah.
series. And, of course, she was absolutely drop-dead gorgeous in Idle Hands.
Yes.
But then, other than Awake, I don't think I've seen her in anything else. And that's because, well, she's not really that great of an actress.
Sin City 1 and 2, I thought she was awesome as the Nancy character, but then she was playing up against Bruce Willis, who, is Bruce freaking Willis, But yeah, like you said, Idle Hands, I loved her in Idle Hands. I never watched Dark Angel because I suppose it was the same time it came out. Buffy had, I think, had just finished or was still going.
running, yeah.
Jennifer Garner was in Alias. There was a lot of these female-led TV shows of super special agents. I was like, meh. But Fantastic Four, she kind of is my Sue Storm. She is pretty good in that, but the films aren't very good, and so I put that on the shoulders of Jessica Alba, and I'm like, I love you, but at the same time, you definitely need a better script. And this is where this film comes in, where, like I said, I'd never seen it, and so Gary said, "Look, we're doing this film. I've watched it before. It's not great." And I'm like, yeah, Hayden Christensen, a bit of Jessica Alba. I'll watch it. It is what it is. And it completely changed my perspective on both actors. I think actors always just need that one film for people to watch, for people to actually accept them for an actor and not the character that they were. Because I totally forgot him as Anakin. I saw him as Clay. I saw him as this heir to this fortune who's lying in the bath. But the whole time we've got this narration from Terrence Howard. Terrence Howard, Hustle and Flow. He was okay as Rhodes in Iron Man. Great actor, but I've heard some controversial stories in the past. I won't really delve into stuff I don't really know about. Like him as an actor. And he's narrating over the start about how Clay has died on his operating table. And so you're like, oh, it's one of those stories.
Yeah.
I don't know if he woke up that morning thinking he might die. I only know the day started much like any other day. And that he was probably thinking of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the big twist or the spoiler's been given at the start. So you're like, okay, so we know he dies, and this doctor's really upset that he lost a patient. But it seems like there was something running deeper there.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what the film then dives into. And during the opening credits, we see Clay lying in a bathtub, and it's one of those great kind of contemplation moments.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
he's thinking about his life. I mean, you don't know what he's thinking about, but you can, he's emoting enough, even though he's underwater.
Well, I was sat there and I'm like, oh, he's going to pop up in a minute. He's going to pop up in a minute. I'm watching for
It's
the
a
edit
one-
now because he's holding his breath for a really long time. And then I'm like, well, he is the Dark Lord of the Sith. So, he can do what the fuck he wants. And it flows in quite well where we get Jessica Alba's character, Samantha, then come in. And yeah, gorgeous girlfriend. She's in love with him. I love the way she's like, I'm thinking what we should do this morning is you should make love to me and then take me for breakfast. I'm like, okay, pen and paper go out the window, because I'd read something about Jessica Alba a few years ago where she'd signed a contract to say that she wouldn't ever appear naked,
Yeah.
because of her upbringing from her family. And I have to bring up now as well, Georgina Chapman is in this film, and she's the wife or ex-wife of Harvey Weinstein, and this is a Weinstein production. And so I kind of, in this beginning, noticed a few hints of possible involvement of trying to see some nudity. Like we get the sight, like she gets pulled into the bath, they have this loving kissing moment, and then they're both stood naked in front of the mirror, and you're like, ooh, Jessica Alba. But I'm like, Harvey Weinstein, I'm going to see this as the artistic approach. This is a happy couple who are together, but they're rich. Well, he's rich.
Yeah. And we find out that she's like the assistant
Oh, yeah.
to Clay's mother.
Yes.
And they're keeping this relationship a secret and have been for months.
Yes.
Despite the fact that they are currently engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first sort of 20 minutes of this film is kind of just building this relationship, the secrecy.
Yeah.
And then they eventually let Clay's mother know that this relationship is happening.
Yeah.
And because they kind of want her blessing, and she is distraught, she's frustrated, she hates the fact that Clay is with this woman. But then we also see that Clay and his mother have a very interesting relationship as well,
Yeah.
where she is incredibly protective of Clay,
Yeah.
especially with the fact that he's going to inherit this entire business. There is no father figure here as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's already got it, hasn't he? He is the figurehead CEO of this company, and it does put a lot of stress on his heart. His mother knows this, and so she just wants to take care of him. I love that moment where he's gone to the hospital. Well, he's gone fishing with Terrence Howard's character, Dr. Harper, and they've been doing it for like a year. They've been waiting on the transplant list for a new heart for him. And he's walked around the hospital with Dr. Harper, and as he comes walking out, he's talking to Sam on the phone, and he notices his mother is in the limo, and he just walks right past Sam, like he doesn't even see her, and he just carries on the conversation. I was like, oh man, it puts the relationship of everybody on this whole new level for me, where I'm like, oh man, I hate the mum. She's forcing this loving couple. I love Jessica Alba. I kind of loving Hayden Christensen's character, but he's forced into this horrible situation. And then when he does confront him, they have that little meeting, don't they, in the office, and Jessica Alba just kind of doesn't even acknowledge Clay, and then she walks away in the rain, which I really love, because obviously the tears and all that kind of stuff. And then he races after her, and he's like, "Yep, come on then, let's go tell her." And Mum's like, "You walk out that door. That's your decision." And I'm like, you've made him make that decision. He's going to take that step now.
Yeah.
If you walk out that door, you made a choice.
You're making it for me.
Yeah, and they do. They rush off and go and get married that very night. Of course, he pulls in his good friend, Dr. Harper,
Yep.
who knew a priest who owed him a favor.
Yep,
So he
yep.
cashed in that favor, and they get married in the middle of the night, and everything is hunky-dory. And then they go home, and then they get the phone call.
Yeah.
That they've got the heart ready for the transplant, so the big day is coming. And then there's the added drama of the fact that you find out that Dr. Harper has 3 malpractice lawsuits.
Four
Four malpractice lawsuits going against him, which, would tell any sane person that you do not want to have an operation under this doctor.
Yeah.
And so the mother is adamant that Clay would see this other more professional, more highly paid, qualified physician to do the job. But of course, he's a douche. He acts like a
Dr.
smug,
Nair.
you know, upper crust knobhead.
Yeah.
And so you're just like, no. So, the film positions you to hate the wealthy and love, the lower class. It's kind of it is definitely like a class system, and you kind of want to root for the underdog. But you've also seen that the doctor was crying at the beginning of the film because Clay dies.
Yeah.
So you sat there like, so what is this? What's this film about then? Like, we already know what's going to happen.
That's exactly how I was feeling at that point, because Arliss Howard plays Dr. Nair, and the way he and the mother Lilith, played by Lena Olin, are sat in the limo talking to Hayden Christensen's character. I did really like that shot. It was very simple, but the dominating elite on one side, and then Hayden Christensen's Clay character, who is still kind of an innocent in all of this, and doesn't want all this pressure on him, and doesn't want to be in this position, and he loves Sam, and he just wants to live a simple life and all that kind of stuff. But it was really good positioning me there, to the point that when they get to the hospital and all the doctors are walking in, and they're shaking hands, like, hi Sam, I was loading. Like you said, we know he dies, so I want to know how it gets there, but how does the rest of this all work? How does he die? And so they get him onto the table. Christopher McDonald, Dr. Lupin's character, comes in. Christopher McDonald, I mean, I know Adam Sandler hatred over here, but Happy Gilmore, he's there, and he's just like, yep, I've got this nice little cocktail for you, Clay. It's going to put you right to sleep. And the film had given us that title card at the beginning, explaining about the number of people each year who go under anesthetic, and everybody normally just goes to sleep, where some of them are awake through it.
Yeah, well, the text that comes up and the tagline for the film is a gross misinterpretation of the actual statistics.
Yeah.
This film was also massively lambasted by those in the medical profession, because this film, it's like somebody who just read a dummy's guide to medical practice and then gave it to Hollywood, and then it went through, the whispers around the table, and then that person went, I know how to do it now, and tried to recreate the scene. And so anybody who knows any doctors or nurses watching the scene would just tell you that it is farcical, that this operating table in theatre looks nothing like a real one. The practices, all of these actors, not a one of them has any medical training, and so all of them are just, it looks like they're just making stuff up. They're just doing stuff with props, and so it just destroyed complete immersion for so many people. And then when you find out about the real medical practices and then watch this film, it would just take you completely out of the experience, because you're like, that wouldn't happen, they shouldn't be doing that, they haven't even done that properly. But the film plays on fear of having a medical accident and needing surgery, and then the fear of being awake and being paralyzed and unable to let the doctors know that you are feeling pain.
Move something, do something, Clay. Move an arm, move a finger, come on, open your eyes. No.
And I know it's very simplistic. Like I said, I had before I even watched the film, I was like, it's going to be that. But I was drawn in by the character development, I suppose, from all of the actors and actresses, that I just let my brain go. We do every now and again, don't we? So once they got him into the operating theatre and they've injected him with that stuff, Hayden Christensen's out, but he's still talking. And then him, I don't know, it's not emoting, I suppose, but it's still acting, isn't it? Because we can't see him, but we can see him, he's unconscious, but he's screaming, Jack, look at the monitor, somebody do something. He wants to stand up, he wants to walk away. And I'm like, oh God, that is actually, you hear about you read the stories, you watch the documentaries, and you go, I don't ever want to be in that situation. Because when they start actually operating, and they slice that scalpel through and they start cutting open. I mean, layman's terms or not, that's still pretty damn gross.
It's shocking to see, yeah, the visual grossness of it, yeah. But it's the same with, the ER documentaries and shows. When they show that kind of stuff, it's wincing. You kind of cringe away from looking at it.
Well, I mean, I couldn't. I was just like, I have to stare intently because I want to see if it's.
You want to see the effect and how well it's done.
How well it's done, and I'm going along with the story where the doctors start to reveal amongst themselves, like I said, we got Dr. Harper, Dr. Putnam, played by Fisher Stevens, and we've got Nurse Carver all in there, and they all start talking about how they've got him right there now, and they can take out his heart, and they can finish the job. And you're like, what? I'm sorry, what?
What? No one's going to jail. Look, let's inject the heart, put it in, and end this thing, okay?
What the fuck?
Nobody's onto anything. We are in the clear. We're gonna kill this guy, and then we're gonna go get a fucking martini, okay?
And this is where the conspiracy mystery starts to come in, where they start to discuss, while Hayden Christensen's Clay can hear them, about how, he's gonna die now, and they're gonna get the money from all of this.
Yeah, they've actually planned to kill him. So when the new heart comes in, they're going to inject it with something, put in this new heart,
play off that he's had a cardiac arrest on the table,
yeah,
and then he'll die. And I'm like, well, how does that? And this is how simple it is. As an experienced film watcher, you'll go, oh, they're claiming on the money, and guess who he's just married? But Jessica Alba had been playing innocent in my life for so long that her and Lilith, they have this little thing out in the in the reception area, where my heart did melt, like, oh, Lilith, you cold-hearted bitch, let her in. She's now your daughter-in-law, and you can all be together. And then when you realise she's part of the conspiracy, I was like, yeah!
There is nothing wrong. Everything is under control.
Bullshit. What the hell's going on in here?
That's right. Come on, baby.
Where the fuck is Fitzpatrick?
I just spoke to him. He's at home.
What do you mean he's at home?
Out.
He's backing out?
What?
Yeah, it's it's the mum who kind of pieces all the clues together. She sees her talking to the doctor, and she's just like, "You don't work here. We've not seen you here before."
Yeah.
And then she notices that, and then when she's at the vending machine, and she turns to her and goes, "Oh, you've got to hold the button down for a prolonged period," and the mother's just sat there like, how do you know all of this?
How do you know all this?
She waits until Sam has gone into the operating theatre, and she rummages through her bag and finds a bunch of letters and realises that she has a different name.
Well, she realises all this, doesn't she, while the operating's happening. So
yes.
we also get Hayden Christensen's out-of-body experience, which, I enjoyed simply because of the portrayal of an out-of-body experience. I knew, we know that he's died, but how does he come back? This can't be how it ends. So as he's running around and he starts to realise, when that moment in the corridor, it really hit me. So, like I said, when the mother started piecing everything together, the whole film flipped on its head for me. The characters have now completely role reversed, and I feel so sorry for Clay. The easy symbology of Sam breaking his heart when he puts it back in, and then his mother mending his heart was really quite touching.
Yeah. For me, though, it was just like about 25, maybe even 30 minutes of this film is just a lot of filler. Like, it's not really a detective movie because, you have Clay, having the outer body experience, which is great.
Yeah.
It's a nice little exploration, but I didn't expect it to go on for as long as it did. And it's the fact that he doesn't do anything in this out-of-body experience. It's not like he kind of signals to his mother like what's actually happening in the operating theatre. The mum figures it all out on her own. So narratively, the story's not doing anything. But what the film does kind of do for you is have the flashbacks to when Clay was a child and what happened to his abusive father, how the mother literally attacked him, and then he kind of fell and went over the banister and died, and so it just kind of shows you this mother-son relationship some more, and they have but at the same time, it's like, it's an out-of-body experience, like they're not really having this dialogue,
well,
but it's for the audience.
Yeah, but On one hand, yeah, I do agree, but it's like if he had started interacting, like there's that moment where he starts to interact with Christopher McDonald's character. He's like, look, I'm crying, I'm upset, I can understand, look at me. And I was sat there like, yeah, come on, he's going to do the whole ghost thing, he's going to poke him and he's going to look down. And it didn't happen. The hopelessness was kicked in, like, oh shit. So by this point, the mum still hasn't massively figured it out, and Clay is still dead or going to die. That when she figures it out and we've gone through all the flashbacks, I thought she'd killed the husband at the start. The film had portrayed the dad, the man of this fortune, as kind of a bit of a loving father to his son. He just had worked really hard for this fortune. What the film shows you later on in the flashback is him as a drug-taking, abusive husband who, I don't know what he was going to do to his son at that point, but he did not look happy. And so when she cracks him with that poker, I'm like, yeah, okay. And throws him down the stairs, and I'm like, okay, now he's traumatized, which explains the whole relationship dynamic of them leading up to the beginning of the film, of why he's trying to get away from her, of why he fell so easily for Sam. When you realize how easily Sam manipulated Clay, yeah, okay, they could have explored maybe the relationship of how Sam was involved with Dr. Harper and all the rest of them before. But would it have been a good filler? I don't know. But when I was sat there thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, I reckon I do reckon that she was sleeping with Dr. Harper before she met Clay. And, malpractices. And he's going through a divorce as well. And so they needed the money. And so she was manipulating people. That moment with Nurse Carver in the operating room. And she's like, if you hadn't got knocked up, you could have gone out with him. I'm like, oh, bitch. Oh, bitch,
I would have had that ring on my finger in 2 months.
Really? Well, if you hadn't got knocked up, maybe you would have had the chance, wouldn't you?
Just go, Penny, all right?
But the moment where mum and son are sat there in the dream sequence, I'm here, there, or nowhere when it comes to out-of-body experiences. But it played really nice for her to be like, I'm doing this for you. I can give you my heart. I have a strong heart. And then Dr. Nair, like all cocky and fuck, has his little moment where Clay's not coming back. The heart's actually not started again. So you have this prolonged, oh shit, is he actually going to properly die now? While the cops are chasing around, grabbing all the other doctors.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, get them, come on, get them. And then with the film just kind of ending on him going, he's now awake, and his eyes opening, I thought, cheese, can I smell cheese there, guy?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Only one thing really matters now. He is awake.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty sudden ending, but it's all wrapped up pretty nicely.
Well, Sam's character just, she almost played off the whole fact of she was going to get away with it. And then when he held up that syringe that she'd used to inject the heart, I'm like, oh, Terrence Howard, like...
He's bringing her down, like, he's not letting her get away with it.
Yeah, maybe they could have explored his character a bit more to explain why now he wants to turn on her, and explain why she is such a bitch, but then at the same time...
They just wanted the money.
Yeah, I know it. I know the film tells us it's money, but like you said, we're looking at it of what they could have possibly gone with more than what we got, Short film though, it's
exactly. It was an hour and 20 minutes, and for me, a lot of it was just fluff. It was just filler.
Yeah.
It doesn't. In that regard, it didn't really work as intently as a thriller should.
Yeah.
It didn't leave you trying to second guess what was going on, because once the reveal happened, it was just like, that's it then. And then it's just wandering around hospital corridors, and then the mum figures it out in like 3 minutes flat. And then the police turn up and it's all over, and it's just like, well, it was fine. The film was well executed, but it was just very forgettable. But Iain, did you have any memorable scenes from the film?
I had a few. The imagery of the surgery and stuff, I mean, was nicely well done. It just kind of highlighted how, they could have just not shown all the gory stuff. They could have just had the camera pointed at the actors, and you could have just gone along with it. But having it there, like, amplified for me like, this is real. Like, he needs to have this heart transplant, and if he doesn't, he will die. And the whole emphasis as well, like, oh, don't you realize that you may die 10 years after this as well? I'm like, it doesn't reassure me. Like, Jesus, just put the fucking thing in there.
Right.
Or give me one of those reactor cores like Tony Stark has. That'll work. The answer is no. I wasn't asking for your permission. The confrontation between mum and son, where she, like you said, he should not be getting operating on by a guy who's got 4 malpractices against him, but it's his friend, and this other guy's a bit of a douche, and I don't, just because he's done it with presidents doesn't mean I should go with him. And I'm like, yeah, rebel against your mum, The montage of Jessica Alba, like, if I die, like, and my life flashes before my eyes, I wouldn't mind if it was a montage of Jessica Alba, like, maybe just her film scenes, that would be great, Fantastic Four and Sin City. It worked really well to emphasize, like, he was using her as his anchor. The pain was so unbearable for him of what they were doing. He could feel it, which meant I was supposed to feel it, so I was feeling it with him. And so her distracting me was a good thing. And then the way the memories molded into, like, his mum, and he starts thinking about his mum, the way his mum's there, and then leads into, obviously, his father and all that kind of situation. It just kept hammering home, like, she's a bad girl, she's a bad girl, she's the bad person. To the point where she goes, I love you, here's my heart. And I'm like, Mom!
I have a strong heart, Clay.
Let's go. Let's prep for transplant.
Always have.
And I suppose the last shot where he realizes that Sam's in on it, she'd been playing it so well as this innocent wife that, like, we see the memory where he shouts wife to her twice, and she stood on the hallway, and as he walks down, it cuts back to her in the operating theatre revealing the secret, and Clay's character, like, just staring at this memory like, what's going on, what are you doing? And me sat there with my notepad and pen going,
yeah, I think I've, Jessica Alba was my teen crush. So just like watching Jessica Alba, it's just like, yeah, she was very pretty.
You mean you're over Jessica Alba? How are you?
I've moved on now.
Oh, okay.
But I think my favourite visual for the film was when Clay was sort of in his, like in a study with a fireplace behind him.
Oh, and
all of the lights just started going out as his heart was dying.
Where it started with the street.
Yes.
That's when I started noticing, and then it went in there, and I was like,
so it was a
really
very nice visual.
Yeah.
But that was it. Nothing else really for me. So, Ian, do you recommend Awake?
Yes, I do, I suppose. But then again, once you know the plot twist, you're not really going to watch it again. I love, like I said, the acting in it. I apologise to Hayden Christensen for not watching more of his stuff after Star Wars, but maybe that means that I was really touched by his acting as Anakin. I need to go back and watch them all over again. Jessica Alba, yes, girl. Like, you always had me as that innocent, and then when you came in and you were a bitch in this, I want to see more. I know, yeah, okay, it's what, over 10 years that you've actually probably appeared in another film, you're off doing your own thing, but come back, be a murderess. Christopher McDonald, he was great as the alcoholic. Terrence Howard, I thought was great as the guy, in control of this whole situation, but then letting it all go and then pulling it all back. The actress playing Lilith, oh man, she almost had me in tears, almost, but I'm a man. I kept myself together and held myself back. Even the guy playing Dr. Nair, like, I looked him up and he was from Full Metal Jacket. So after watching him on this, I'm like, I could watch Full Metal Jacket again. This whole film has a lineup of actors that you could really watch again, but probably not in this.
No. It's a fairly well-made thriller with a decent premise, and the concept of being awake whilst having heart surgery certainly drives up the anxiety and leaves you feeling uncomfortable with that idea of that lucid nightmare. The acting and the performances were all fairly good. They were charismatic and likeable, with the plot twist reveals and the darker sides and the greed when faced with killing someone for lots of money. The film has a fairly good pace and it's well shot and edited with quality production values. And the story itself is fine, but the drive of the film is following Clay around in an out-of-body experience where he can't interact or change anything, and ultimately has no impact on the film's resolution, leaving it feeling pointless. I don't really think you're missing out by not watching this, and it's mostly forgettable, unless you are terrified of hospitals and surgeries. And this film highlights how little Hollywood really knows about doctor and nurse practices, and when it comes to portraying them in certain films. It's not a dud, but it's not a smart thriller, but it is entertaining. It's just not good enough to get my recommendation. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
I'm sorry, darling. The answer is no.
I wasn't asking for your permission.